Hi there, this is Rob with DJOwner.com, and I'm here today talking to you a little bit about why I don't think you should be your own wedding DJ. Now, I've seen a lot of things on Pinterest, I've seen a lot of bride sites, a lot of wedding sites that say, you can DJ your wedding, it's easy. It's not that easy. So I actually have 17 reasons why you shouldn't DJ your own wedding. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through all of those here. I'm trying to keep this video under 10 minutes, so let me tell you some of the highlights now, and I'll give the full list out on my website, give you some details on how to get to that in just a moment here. But let's just start with the basics, right? You want to have a wedding, you want to have some music, you want to have some entertainment, but you feel like a DJ is expensive. I can understand that, but you have to think about all the things that a DJ will do for you that's hard to do on your own. So let me talk to you through what some of those things are. My first reason is you're going to have to do a lot of prep work. If you want to DJ your own wedding, what you're probably going to have to do is get some sort of device like an iPad or a cell phone or something like that and load that sucker up with a bunch of music. And then you're going to have to plan out the entire ceremony, the entire reception in advance, and then not be able to change it. So you're going to have to do all of that work in advance yourself. You're going to have to figure out, how do I actually get the equipment to do this? What are the connections that I need to plug into whatever speakers are going to be there? What speakers can I get my hands on? What music do my guests like? How do I arrange that music in an interesting way? You're basically going to be learning how to be a DJ on your own without actually being a DJ. So there's a lot of effort that's going to go into it. Expect to spend somewhere between 10 and 20 hours worth of effort putting all that time in. I can say that that would be pretty reasonable. Reason number two, guests are going to mess with your music. If you just set up your music and it's all perfect and you leave it alone, somebody's going to feel like they know better than you do. So they're going to come up and say, I don't know who would have chose this song. Nobody likes this song. Let me switch it to something else. Now your whole playlist for the evening is thrown off. What happens if they skip 10, 20, 30 songs ahead? Will you have enough music to finish everything out? You don't know. So that's another reason why it's good to have somebody managing it for you. So you can get that on your own. That's my reason number three. If you're going to do this on your own, you need to assign someone to be your music monitor for the entire evening. That means one of your guests is not going to get to enjoy the event. So they're going to sit there at some sort of device, and they're going to watch that music play all night long. Maybe they'll be able to go to a bar and have a drink or grab some dinner, take a break, couple, 2, 3, 4 songs worth of break, but they're going to have to keep their eye on that music all night long. And that's, really is that something you want to do to somebody in your wedding? Now, you could always pay someone to come and sit and do that for you, but now you're just paying someone to be a DJ. You might as well pay for a DJ at that point. So, if you're not paying someone, if it's a volunteer, who knows if they're going to do a good job? That's my reason number 4. Your recruit may flake in the process. So, if you're sitting there, you're enjoying your wedding, and you notice, hey, something's up with the music, or the music just stops playing altogether. Where's that person who was supposed to be in charge? Where's Uncle Sal or Aunt Jane who was supposed to be running my music? Oh, they're in the bathroom, or they're at the bar, or they've just given up altogether, or they didn't come to the wedding. Now I gotta find somebody else to take over. That's a whole other issue that you're gonna have to deal with. When you pay a professional, you don't have to worry about, am I gonna get the service that I paid for, because you paid for the service. It's a different environment altogether. Guest expectations. So I'll tell you, there is a reason to not have a DJ at a wedding. If you're going to have a very small, very intimate wedding, or you're not really going to have very much dancing and you just kind of want background music, that's okay. You can get away with maybe a Bluetooth speaker, maybe plugging into a sound system at a restaurant with a playlist that's going to play for 4 or 5 hours and just let it run. That's fine. But anything bigger than that, or any event that's going to have more than 50 people, guests show up to a wedding, they expect there to be some sort of entertainment. They expect people to dance. So your guests are expecting that someone's going to be in charge of that entertainment. They may or may not be a professional if you're just recruiting somebody. So now you've got those guest expectations to work against. I've been to weddings where they just did the playlist thing and they wanted to have dancing, but people don't know what to do. There's no kind of mood set. And then they just filter away after dinner. Nobody really wants to hang around an event that's not very much fun or isn't very well organized. They might sit and chat, but nobody's really going to be focused on the music. So if music is important to you, if you want to have a good experience with your music, you definitely want to have somebody in charge because your guests are expecting that. They expect at least a little bit of entertainment for their evening. If you don't entertain them, they're just going to go home. They're just going to leave. And you've spent all this money on this great event that people left 2 or 3 hours early for. So that's not something necessarily that you want. Again, goes back to professionalism. So reason number 6 is a lack of professionalism in anybody amateur that you might put in charge of the music. You've got the issue of people wandering off. You've got the issue of, do they know what they're doing? Are they going to mess with the music? Are other people going to mess with your music? And then there's the what ifs. What happens when something goes wrong? When you work with a professional, the DJ, they know their equipment. They know how this all works. They know what to do if music just stops playing suddenly, if the power goes out, if somebody falls down and knocks over the wedding cake. That's the sort of thing that a DJ gives you. It's that peace of mind to be able to do the things that an amateur can't do. So now we're through 6 reasons. Let me see if I can get through 10, and then I'll give you the rest of the 7 on the website. No ability to respond to the mood. So that's something that I actually just mentioned there as well. Let's say, so the easy mood response is if a DJ is running a wedding and people aren't really dancing, they can try a couple of things to try to break open a dance floor, and then once they've got that mood going, keep it going. If you're playing a standard playlist, there's no experimenting. There's no kind of bouncing around. You're stuck with whatever you've determined in advance. And then there's the opposite side. What if something happens? So that example I just gave, let's say I've actually been at a wedding where a drunk guest knocked over the wedding cake. I had to recover from that as a DJ. So I had to say, okay, what can I do to take focus away from the tragedy that just occurred over there and get people back into the mood of the evening? And we just went back to some great dinner music, just got people to relax, and then we continued with the event later on once the ordeal had gone past. So being someone who can respond to that, having a human in charge, makes a big, big difference to respond to that mood. And then, the opposite side of it too, if you've got a great vibe going on a dance floor, you want to keep that going. Did your playlist plan for that in advance? Maybe people want more of certain kind of music. You wouldn't have known that already. So that's my reason number 6, no ability to respond to the mood. Number 7, rather. Number 8 is a DJ can take and filter requests. One of the things you're going to struggle with when you try to do prep work to be your own DJ at a wedding is, what are my guests going to actually want to listen to? Who's actually going to show up to the wedding? What do they expect? That's going to be something that a DJ can respond to in the moment. And they can help you in 2 ways. They can start by taking requests from your guests and hearing what your guests want to hear played. That's very, very helpful for me as a DJ. I love to take requests. If you're working with a DJ that's not so much on the request, you probably want somebody else, because the purpose of being a DJ and the purpose of having music as at your event is to have people have a great time. And a DJ can handle that through requests. That's a great way for me to learn, what does the audience in front of me want to hear? That's absolutely information that I love to have. The other way, the second way that a DJ can help you is they can help filter out requests. If you've given them a do not playlist, they know what kind of music you don't want to hear. If somebody comes up and asks for something wildly inappropriate for a wedding reception, they can shut that down in a very polite way. I usually start with I don't know if I have that one. Or the tried and true, that doesn't really work for right now. What else would you like to hear? That's a great way to politely say, that's music that's not going to work for the current moment. And as a DJ, I've dealt with that for decades. It's not an issue. It's something you can easily deal with as a DJ. Reason number 9 is going to be the amount of money you're going to spend on equipment anyway. So if you've got a tablet existing, if you're doing an event that's over 50 people, you need some gear. This tablet, my iPad here, will not plug directly in to a professional sound system. Most places don't have the equipment to plug this in. So you're going to need some extra cables for sure. Realistically, what you really need is, if you're doing any sort of announcements, if you're talking at all on a microphone, a lot of folks don't realize this, but professional microphones, any microphones, really don't plug into amateur equipment. Don't plug into commercial equipment. I've got my mixer board in front of me here. This is what we call a DJ controller. I can plug a microphone directly into this because it's built for professionals. There's nowhere in my iPad to plug in a microphone. There's nowhere in a pair of home speakers to plug in a microphone. So you're probably going to need, if you want to do the traditional announcements, if you want to do introductions, if you want to have toasts, and you have more than 25, 30 people, more than that can be heard at somebody just standing in the corner of a room and talking at a normal speaking volume. If you're doing any of that, you need a microphone. If you need a microphone, you need equipment. To get the professional gear that you need to rent that gear, it's going to cost you somewhere between about $300 and $500. The average DJ in the U.S. costs about $860 for a wedding reception, for a 4-hour wedding reception. So you're really not spending very much more as a DJ. In fact, I rent out my equipment. My cost for me to show up and work your event versus the cost for you to just rent my equipment, my mixer and my speakers and my microphones, it's only a couple $100 a difference. So once I've shown up and brought all this stuff with me, I might as well do your event for you, is basically my philosophy. And that's what a lot of DJs do as well, because it's the gear that's expensive. It's the music that's expensive. It's all of that prep work that's expensive. Once I get to your event, there I just get to have a good time. So that part is actually quite easy. So you're really not saving that much money if you need to do most of the things you do with a professional DJ. And the last one I'm going to leave you with here is number 10, awkward silences. This is my favorite reason to hire a DJ and one of the most cringe-inducing things I've seen at do-it-yourself DJ weddings. That's having that awkward pause where for whatever reason the next song didn't load, the playlist didn't load. If you're streaming from Apple Music or Spotify or Pandora, you get the little buffering window and there's just dead air. That's going to kill the mood of your event. Nobody likes that, and that's hard to recover from. And then if you're not somebody who's used to having to deal with, let me scramble on the fly and figure out what's wrong with my equipment and getting back up and running right away, that's going to go on longer and longer and longer and feel like an eternity. And as that happens, if you have a dance floor going, people are going to filter away. They're going to go to the bar and get a drink. They're going to grab a slice of cake. They're just going to go sit down and wait for the problem to get figured out. And all of that fun that you were having is now dissipated. You have to build that energy back up again. Professional DJs can handle that for you. It is kind of one of the skills that we're built for. In fact, every time I do an event, even if I've got all my gear set perfectly and ready to go and everything is spot on flawless, I always have a backup music source plugged directly into the speakers that in a heartbeat's notice, if everything just shuts down and I don't know in the first 3 seconds why that happened, I can just push play on my backup and we've got music going again. And while that plays, I can work on figuring out what was the problem. If you're not working with a professional, they're not going to have that expertise and they're not going to have the backups. You as the do-it-yourselfer aren't going to have those backups for when your equipment fails to be able to run this on your own. And then kind of a funny story as well, one of the do-it-yourself weddings that I went to, they were playing from a playlist, and they were actually playing from an iPod. This is way back in the day. I'm old. It's fine. They were playing from an iPod, and they did one of the most cardinal sins that you can do when DJing your own wedding. They forgot to mute the sounds on their device. So every time they used the scroll wheel to pick the next song, we heard the click, 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 click as that was going around. And it was all I could do not to get out of my seat and go help them because I couldn't take it anymore. But they weren't that close of friends, so I did not want to embarrass them like that and didn't want it to be that big of a deal. Listen, I get it. If you're thinking about doing your own wedding as a DJ, playing your own music for a wedding, I can understand how that cost can feel significant. And in fact, I almost did it myself. When my wife and I got married, we hired a live band, one of my favorite acts. We were having the reception at a venue that they played regularly, so they knew it well. They were so excited to work with us, and come to find out as we were going through the talking and the contracting and the setting up what we wanted for the event, or for the wedding rather, they told us this was one of the last weddings they were planning on doing because they had run into the situation where people, having spent so much expense on them, and they were not inexpensive, did not want to also pay for a DJ to be there to play during their breaks. And a live band can't play 4 or 5 hours at a time. They'll wear out. They need those breaks to be able to go and recharge and come back on strong. So I actually ended up going with a DJ to play in between those sets, and it was phenomenal. He was also a DJ that did a similar style of music. They put together some dance lessons for us. It was a swing wedding. We had a fabulous, fabulous time. It was totally worth it. And we worked with them because they weren't our main entertainment. They were able to do it at a really nice discounted rate. So I had gone through that process of, well, can't I just play my own background music? And luckily the band clued me in on, that's not what you want to do. It totally killed the mood for the reception. Because of that, then they were having to bring the entire crowd back up every single time they went back out on stage, and they were just tired of doing it. So that's why they stopped doing weddings altogether. So I get where you want to save the money, but if you look at your budget, average cost of a DJ is probably about 10 or 15%, no more than 20%. Cost you $860 for 4 hours in 2020. So this is certainly something that you can do at not too much cost. So there's a bunch of reasons why you might want to do it. I actually have 7 more for you listed out on my website. So do this. Go to djowner.com/DIY wedding. So djowner.com/DIY wedding. And the whole article will be on there on the full 17 reasons why you wouldn't want to be your own wedding DJ. And I've actually added a bonus there as well. I've told you what to do if you have an ultra low budget for your wedding and you want to save as much money as possible, but you still want to have the DJ experience. I'll give you the one secret tip that you want to look for to get that done for you. And I'll tell you, even at that level of pay, in a couple $100 range, you can get somebody who'll do a great, great job for you. And most importantly, be a dedicated professional, because as soon as you pay them, they're professional, right? A dedicated professional who's in charge of your evening and can make it a wonderful, wonderful experience. So I hope you got some great knowledge from this. I'm hoping that fellow DJs out there who watch this as well got some great tips to pass on to their clients. And if this is something you still want to do, I certainly support you. Everybody's entitled to what they want to do. But I think if you're going to have a wedding where you have announcements and you have dancing, you need somebody in charge of your music who's professional and knows what they're doing. So once again, I'm Rob from djowner.com. Thank you so much for joining us here, and we hope to see you again real soon.